Welcome to Pick Up and Deliver, the podcast where I pick up my audio recorder as I head out for a walk and deliver an episode to you while I stroll around. I'm Brendan Riley. Well, good morning. It's lovely to talk to you again here in suburban Chicago, or from suburban Chicago, wherever it is that you are this fine, lovely day. I'm looking forward to talking to you now because this is episode, I believe, 470, and it's time for a 400 back. This is a relatively recent segment that I've decided to start doing, trying to do it about once a month. And the idea of the 400 back is that I am going to look back approximately 400 episodes, scan around a little bit, generally just pick one in a month that I think looks interesting, and do an episode about it. So this is episode 470, but I'm going to look back at episode 68068, which I titled Strange Stories. Strange Stories? Strange Games. Strange Stories, which I titled Strange Stories. In that episode, I talked a little bit about different games that had weird themes and some themes that I thought should be explored. Among the games I talked about that I had weird themes, I talked about Last Will and Prodigal's Club as really interesting twists on make as much money as you can themes. I talked about Titanic. Well, actually, when I talked about that, I think I had not yet played Prodigal's Club, but I talked about Titanic, the various Titanic-themed games, and I had not yet played SOS Titanic. And I talked about Ponzi, which I also haven't played, but I do have a copy of now, as a really interesting theme about stealing money. I then also suggested that there were a couple themes that would be fun to see someone explore. Two of the themes that I suggested were early Hollywood and Endurance, the name of the ship that Ernest Shackleton sailed to the South Pole, which has since been found underwater, mostly intact because the water there is so cold that the bacteria that would eat the wood do not live there. So down in the ocean beneath the Antarctic is William Shackleton's Endurance, sort of in good condition, at least as far as a ship on the bottom of the ocean goes. And I have since then been working on a game about early Hollywood, not very aggressively, it's just sort of simmering there. But listening to this episode really did remind me what a cool theme I think that is, and how interesting it would be to engage with it. At the same time, I also suggested Operation Mincemeat would somehow be an interesting game, although I'm not sure what that would look like. I have since seen a movie based on Operation Mincemeat. And then I also suggested that it would be interesting to have a cooperative game about the women's suffrage movement. Since then, the game Votes for Women has come out. So looks like my predictive strategy worked, or not. I'm sure no one listened. The fact that there hasn't been an endurance game or really any early Hollywood games. There have been a couple games about making movies, but they aren't tied to particular eras. And it's certainly not the kind of game I suggested or have been working on. It is cool to learn that I said, hey, there should be a game about women's suffrage movement, and then now there is. I mean, it really makes me want to seek it out and play it. But listening to that episode did get me thinking about some weird themes that I've encountered in the 400 episodes since I made that one, and just making me want to talk a little bit about that experience in those games. And also some new games that I think it would be worthwhile to see some new themes. So maybe I'll offer a couple more predictions. We'll see how this goes. I've listed out the weird themes part of games that already exist. Whether or not I think of new games, I did not make a brainstorm of them, so we'll see. So I'll start with games that I have played. One of the weirdest themes that's come out in the last few years is from Perseverance, The Castaway Chronicles. I played this game very recently, within the last 6 months. And remember, in the premise of this game, a cruise ship has accidentally drifted through a time portal and ended up in an alternate dimension where there is an island full of dinosaurs. And the people from that modern day cruise ship must now figure out how to live, work, and survive on an island full of dinosaurs. That is a weird theme, weirdly specific. Also, it blends some interesting sort of civ building and defense mechanisms into the game, and uses a variety of different factors, including sort of popularity, as the way to determine who wins. So Perseverance Castaway Chronicles, what a cool idea for a narrative, and an interesting game. Another theme that I've played since then, which this game actually existed, but I didn't know about it, or if I did, I didn't mention it here as a weird theme, but The Bloody Inn. The Bloody Inn is, of course, a story about innkeepers working together at a hotel where you've agreed that murdering the guests and stealing their money is okay as long as you don't get caught. So in the game you have guests and you can put them in the rooms that you're in charge of, and if you want to, you can murder them overnight and steal their stuff, but then you have to figure out somewhere to stash the body, and if you get caught with the body, you will do badly. So it's a weird game with terrifying art, but really interesting gameplay mechanisms, and something I enjoy playing and haven't played a lot, but I would like to return to. I did manage to find a copy of the Carnies expansion, which adds, I guess, carnies to the game, but that is another one on the pile of haven't tried it yet. So the Bloody Inn is the second weird theme that I would point to. A third weird theme is the battle inside someone's mind. Now this one I'm going to offer two games that approach this theme from different ends, one of which I've played, one of which I've only heard about. So the one I've played is another one from Mind Clash Games, and this is Cerebria, the Inside World. So Cerebria is, of course, the battle between happiness and gloom, or bliss and gloom. You play one of the two general emotive states, and your goal is to battle for control of the mind in which you both reside by deploying different emotions and trying to take area control of a variety of different elements. The game is clearly inspired by the movie Inside Out. It even divides the board into realms, but of course they didn't license the movie, so there's not a significant plot tie-in, and all of the art is their own. In fact, more interesting in a lot of ways than the art from Inside Out. Also, Cerebria is an incredible game. It's really good. Really interesting back and forth push and pull mechanisms. It's very fun to play at 4 players, so you have someone to strategize with, but frankly, 2-player, 2-handed is also really good. I don't really like 2-player, 1-handed. I think the depth that's added by having 2 figures on the board and twice as many and 2 special powers available really adds to the game and makes it fun. So I would generally recommend 2-handed, so playing 2-player with 2 spirits each, or 4-player. I have not gotten a chance to try 3-player yet, in part because I don't bring Cerebria out enough or often enough for the people who would play it with me to learn it well enough that we could play a second time with extra, with the balance, the forces of balance in play, which is the expansion. So that's Cerebria. And then I would like to pair with that the recent game from Corey Konetska's new game design studio. I'm forgetting the name of the studio right now, but it's called Inside Voices in My Head. And the premise of this game is that you are competing mental states inside the mind of somebody who is on trial for some sort of heinous crime. And you are, on one hand, you're trying to get them to admit to it so that they can get convicted, which is the right thing to do because they did the crime, and you're trying to get them help. On the other hand, you're trying to get them to not admit anything so that they don't get convicted and can stay free. So it's the back and forth of those two things that's really fascinating and makes for an interesting story. That's Voices in My Head from Corey Konetska. The other 2 games that I've got here as interesting themes, but I haven't played yet, we have So You've Been Eaten, which is a Scott Almes game from, I believe, Renegade Games. Oh no, it's not Renegade. It is the people who made Redacted, and they published They Who Were 8, Ludi Creations. It's Ludi Creations is the publisher. And in this game, you are a space miner trying to harvest space crystals from inside the stomach of a giant space monster. And you're trying to harvest these crystals and then get out of the stomach before the monster's stomach linings and other internal defenses digest you. On the opposite side, you could play the monster, trying to digest the invasive miner who is inside your guts, stealing stuff. One of the things that they touted as an amusing thing for this game to be is they called it a 0 to 2 player game because the game comes with 2 automata systems, one for the monster and one for the miner. And so you can run both automata and let the game play out without you intervening at all. I don't really know why you would, maybe except as a curiosity, but I think that's an amusing thing. It was an amusing marketing gimmick and certainly got them a lot of press. Plus, excellent title, So You've Been Eaten. So those are examples of a couple really weird themes. Oh, and then finally, the one that kind of started me off on this, or I would say the one that the recent news that grabbed my attention enough that when this story came out, that recent news led me to engage, was the fact that Elizabeth Hargrave's newest game, The Fox Experiment, is available on Kickstarter right now, I think from Pandasaurus Games. And in The Fox Experiment, you are embodying the Russian scientists who, over the course of several generations of foxes, tried to breed domesticated foxes. And it's about the way that different characteristics of personality and biology were manipulable through controlled breeding. I don't know much more about it than that. I looked at the pieces, it looks neat, it's a fun theme, but also looked at the price tag, it's a little high. It's a little high if I'm not super excited about the game. And frankly, by not watching any of the videos or anything, I'm avoiding getting super excited about it, so then I can avoid backing it. If it turns out it's really good later, maybe I'll regret that and I'll have to get a copy, but for now, I'm gonna take a pass on The Fox Experiment. So that's the other game that's out right now that has a really unusual theme that I think is worth exploring, I'm really glad to see is out there. In the 4 years since I've made that episode, we've also seen a really dramatic rise in the cozy genre. Pencil First Games has published several plant-focused games. We also have stuff like Cottage Garden that I talked about, Succulent, and Verdant are two games that have come out recently that have plant themes to them. And then the cozy games as well, games that are sort of around themes that are comfy and fun. Wingspan is, of course, the biggest footprint in that region, but we've seen a number of games with similar themes come out since then. And of course, full disclosure, I am a partner at XYZ Game Labs, and so our game, Arch Ravels, which is about knitting and fiber crafts, is within that cozy core genre. What are some themes that would be interesting beyond that? One theme that I've been kicking around for a while that I would really like to see materialize into a game is the idea of the 12 Yule lads. The Yule lads are a part of the folk tradition of Iceland, in which these sort of fairies or pixies or gnomes come down from the mountains and mess around with your house before Christmas. There's 12 of them, and one of them comes each day, and they have hilarious names like Shoe Stealer and Sausage Sniffer and that sort of thing. And so I don't know exactly what it would be, but I think it would be fun to have some sort of possibility for the Yule lads to be in a game, or to have a game themed around them. I'm not really sure what that would be though. There was a news event a few years ago. This might have been even before the last episode. As you get older, your sense of how long ago things were dramatically changes. But I would be really intrigued to have a game based on robbing the Canadian Strategic Syrup Reserve. There was an event where somebody managed a heist and they stole tankers and tankers full of syrup, I guess, or somehow pilfered gallons and gallons of syrup from the Strategic Canadian Syrup Reserve. So I think it would be really funny to have a game built around that idea where you're all corrupt managers of the syrup reserve and your goal is to embezzle as much as you can without getting caught by the other players who are also trying to embezzle as much as they can. I guess part of the funny idea of it would be that you'd be caught having sticky fingers. Well, those are the two new ideas I have for you this episode. Like I said, I'm also still interested in working on my early Hollywood game, and I think that Endurance and Operation Mincemeat would make for great game content as well. So go forth and design, friends. So maybe leave the Yule Lads one for me. I don't know, I think that's a funny idea. What are some themes you think I have? What are some themes you think I forgot? Head over to Board Game Geek Guild 3269 and share your thoughts there. Thanks for joining me on my walk today. I hope that your next walk is as pleasant as mine was. Bye-bye.
Brought to you by Rattlebox Games.